Hello and welcome to the first edition of Milwaukie Beat. My name is Dave Hedges. The programme will be about Milwaukie, what goes on in Milwaukie, issues in Milwaukie, and an opportunity for you to come on the programme and to promote your points of view and events that you might be running. I'll explain how you can do that at the end of the programme. My first guest today is Greg Hemer, who is a member of the Milwaukie Historical Society, and he's going to talk to us about the Historical Society and the museum, Milwaukie Museum. Greg, welcome. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you very much.
Let's start off with the easy one. What is the Milwaukie Museum?
The Milwaukie Museum is a collection of people, places, and events that have shaped Milwaukee's history. We are located at 3737 Southeast Adams Street, which is right behind Milwaukie Marketplace on the corner of 37th and Railroad. We are open Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 5 p.m., and admission is free.
Thank you. So the history of the museum itself. When did the museum actually start?
So in 1972, Krista McDonald and United Grocers bought the land on Webster and Lake, where the Wise home was sitting. The museum is the Wise home, moved to its current location in 1976. At that point in time, Krista McDonald made the collection of what is inside the museum today and put it out there as a house museum. We recently have changed what is considered a house museum, which is where you put items in places like a bedroom or into a kitchen, and we have turned it into a interpretive center now. We have 4 exciting new exhibits made in Milwaukie. We have the history timeline of Milwaukie. We have the Wise home, family history, and the Curiosities of Milwaukie exhibit. We've also recently expanded our research library, which is a great place to be able to come and learn about the history, events, businesses, organizations, and places that have shaped Milwaukee's history.
Can you tell us a little bit about who actually runs the museum, starting with what I term as the group of ladies that were running it for many years when I first came here?
So when in 1937, the Milwaukie Historical Society was formed. It was largely in part because of Roosevelt's New Deal, where what one of the projects was to get the oral history and written down for the children and the grandchildren of pioneer settlers. In 1937, this group had formed, and it became a very active social club. It wasn't until '76, when the museum was placed on its current location, that it had a home. It started with Krista McDonald, who started the collection and made the museum her life. She was there every single day and was organizing the museum. After her passing, this wonderful lady named Madeline Bowl took over, and she ran the museum until 2009, after her passing. Then the Historical Society, with their group of what we'd like to call the older generation, started to run the museum. It was in about 2012 when I became active in the Milwaukie Historical Society, when the museum was reaching a turning point where the older generation was unable to care and really run the museum in a proper way. They had asked City Council for some help. The mayor at the time, Jeremy Ferguson, held a big event at the museum, and I attended that one. And that's when my love of the Milwaukie Museum and the history of Milwaukie really began.
So the ladies came along to the council, and from that meeting, the council advanced the museum a grant of $30,000. And that was to employ a curator for the... Can you tell us who it was that eventually took on that role and what they have done, the changes they've made to the museum since they've been on board?
Well, we have been very thankful to have Alder LLC as our curators. In 2013, the city of Milwaukee generously gave us a grant for $30,000 to be able to hire a curator. We went out and we started a search. And one of the great things about Alder LLC is that they came with us with a 5-year plan and a 3-headed person monster. The owner is Morgan Young, and she was grouped together with Val Ballstrom, a Milwaukee resident, and Maya Anderson, who runs OHSU's Records and Archival Department. They came in and they helped us organize the things that we needed to do to become more of an effective museum. For example, they gave us policies and procedures to be able to bring in and bring out items. Policies and procedures such as an emergency plan, how to coordinate with volunteers. They also gave us the perspective of, instead of being a house museum, turn it more into an interpretive museum and rotate the displays. They taught us how to archive material and how to wrap it up, how to put it into boxes, how to do those basic things that we as volunteers had very little knowledge of. We are coming to the end of that curator program, unfortunately, but they have taught us a huge amount and have set the stage forward for at least the next 5 years on what a wonderful place the Milwaukee Museum is.
Earlier in the conversation, you touched on some of the exhibits that are at the museum. And I think it would be a way of tempting people to come to visit and see for themselves if you outline some of the ones that were there. Perhaps we can start with the most visible one, the Portland tram that's outside the building, how that came to be there and the history of that.
So old number 3 is what we like to call it. And if you pull on into the museum, the first thing that you will see outside is old number 3. It is an old horse-drawn carriage from the Portland Tram Company. And so everything that is old becomes new again. And it basically ran along the same tracks that the new light rail is bringing. It was a horse-drawn carriage, and it was the connection from Milwaukee to Portland, because at that time we didn't have any roads. It was decommissioned in 1890.
As you go in the front door of the museum, what I would say is the corridor of the house. Hanging on the wall on the left is, I believe, the Made in Milwaukee exhibit. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how that came about and what that represents?
So the Made in Milwaukee exhibit is an exhibit and interpretation of what the businesses and events that have made Milwaukee what it is today. For example, one of our major sponsors was Bob's Red Mill, a large business here in not only Milwaukee, but part of Clackamas County. Blunt Industries, PNC Tools, Bernard Garage, Milwaukee Lumber, and other businesses. It's also a celebration of businesses of the past. Standard Flour Mill, which was known in the 1890s, from the 1860s to the 1890s, as one of the best producers of flour in the state of Oregon. We also celebrate Lot Whitcomb's contributions to the producing of lumber and to the shipbuilding empire that he built here in the Willamette River Basin.
When I was walking around the museum the other Saturday and speaking to you, there's a couple of exhibits that caught my eye, which you mentioned at the time. The first one was the Jack Dempsey boxing gloves. If you'd like to tell us a little bit of the history of those.
So, believe it or not, we were a mecca in the 1910s to the 1920s for boxing. At 17th and Harrison, there was what is called the car barn, which would have been an old trolley barn where they would have kind of switched the tracks to be able to run the trolley cars on. It was abandoned, and it was turned into a 5,000 seat stadium, mainly used for boxing and some dancing as well. We had the African-American championship fight there. It was Tate versus Wills. And Jack Dempsey was Tate's sparring partner, which got Jack Dempsey very interested in the Milwaukee Boxing Commission. With that, he and Tate would spar in demonstrations there at that car barn.
Next to the boxing gloves on the same shelf, I noticed an alligator skin. And I believe you told me that that was actually captured in Milwaukee.
Yes, believe it or not, we had live alligators, we had peacocks, we had all sorts of animals, and that was part to Crystal Lake Park. Once again, in the 1910s, 1920s, Milwaukee was well known for its amusement. People from Portland would have their summer houses there, and they would come and visit Milwaukee for entertainment and amusement value. One of those is Crystal Lake Park. To give you a perspective of where it's at, it's basically where Crystal Lake Apartments is now on Harrison Street. It started as a homeowner that had his house there, and he was digging, and a spring kept popping up into where he was digging. He decided to go ahead and dig it all out, and it flooded and became the lake. Inside the lake, he had picnic benches, baseball fields, horses, alligators, he had a petting zoo, he had a bowling alley, he had all sorts of stuff. And in fact, it was the amusement mecca hub, kind of like an Oaks Park is today.
As you go further down the corridor, past the little room where these are, there's a reference section at the back. I noticed the other day when I was there, a gentleman had come in and he was researching a building that was near his house to find the history of it. Can you tell us what's actually in the research section and how it does get used by the citizens of Milwaukee?
So our research library is a vast expanse of people, places, organizations, and events that have happened inside the city of Milwaukee, Clackamas County, and the state of Oregon. It is information that you won't find anywhere onto the internet, or in a local library. It houses photographs, newspaper articles, written accounts, and documentation of the people, places, and events that have made Milwaukee great. In fact, I write an article for our local pilot history every month, and I use that research library myself to be able to find interesting facts and figures that coincide with the history of Milwaukee. A lot of people come to that to talk about or want to learn about their property, where it came from, who the original settlers were. They want to know more about what is on display at the museum and get in a little bit deeper detail about that. They want to know about their genealogy. If your family has been in Milwaukee for quite an amount of time, there is a binder or a book that probably has their name on them. For example, there is the Kellogg book, there is the Cam book, there's the Whitcomb book, there's the Hosley book, and many, many, many other books that can help you know a little bit more about the history of either yourself, your family, your property, or an event that took place in Milwaukee.
Is there a particular item in the museum which has some special significance that people might like to come along and look at?
There are a lot of things that people would love to see at the museum that have a lot of significance. I myself, the boxing gloves and the alligator skins are two of my favorite. There are unique items that you won't see anywhere else. For example, there's a scale from the old Percy's Pharmacy there. There are typewriters, Boy Scout uniforms, even a cannonball that was shot somewhere here in Milwaukee. There are all sorts of unique things that you can come and see.
Oh, I hope you've encouraged people to come along and have a look. Tell us a little bit more about the Historical Society itself, the current makeup of it, and when it meets and how people can join it.
So the Historical Society meets every second Tuesday at the museum at 3:30. It is very easy to become a society member. You can become a society member as an individual for $15 a year annually, or you can join as a business or an organization for $100 a year. All of that funding goes towards the operation and maintenance of the Milwaukie Museum. We are a group of volunteers. We'd love to have people come and volunteer and help in the endeavor of preserving Milwaukee's history for future generations. For example, the things that you can volunteer for are operating the museum when we're open, special projects like working on the research library, helping with exhibits, or doing other various tasks, gardening at the museum grounds, helping to paint, those kind of things. We also encourage people that it is a tax-deductible donation. So you may donate any amount of money that you wish, and of course, following the federal rules and guidelines of tax deductibility, it is a nonprofit 500c3 corporation. We also encourage people to come, and when you visit the museum, admission is free. But we do have a donation box. So if you enjoy your experience, please leave us a couple of dollars.
When I was at the last meeting, and from looking at the agendas, it's a regular event for somebody to speak about the history of Milwaukie from the point of view of having grown up and lived there. Can you just give an outline of some of the people who've spoken and may be coming to speak at the meetings?
So we've had a vast array of speakers that come. We've had 2 accomplished authors. We've had radio hosts. We've had the John Terry, the old Oregon historical beat writer, and many others. Our last guest speaker was Don McLaughlin, whose property actually was donated to where you know that the Milwaukie Senior Center or North Clackamas Park is. These speakers come and talk about history that you never really get on the internet or through reading articles. They give you the oral history, the feel of what Milwaukie was back in the day. We have members, our membership is 70 people strong, and some of our members are over 80 years old. They remember the days when the cows roamed free on the streets, and that they all lived on farms for their living.
Interesting, thank you. We've spoken about the past and the present, now about the future. What is the future for the museum? How are you going to go forward, particularly to secure its financial security?
So the future is wide open for the Milwaukie Museum. We as a society have put together a 5-year plan. One of our is to reach out with grants and through kind donations and through expanding our membership to be able to expand out our financial health. Along with our financial health, we expect to have rotating exhibits, an exciting new, every time that you come to the museum, you'll have a new exciting experience. And we are looking for opportunities to gel ourselves into the Milwaukie community. We've reached out to the NDAs of Milwaukie. We've reached out to the city. We've reached out to places like Bob's Red Mill and to other various organizations like Celebrate Milwaukie. We look forward to partnering with our historical neighbors, Clackamas Historical Society, Oak Lodge Detectives. And through all of our combined efforts, we look forward to preserving the future of Milwaukie for future generations.
Thank you, Greg. That's very interesting. Thank you for coming along today. I sincerely hope we've encouraged some people to come along to the museum and not just look at it as they drive down Railroad Avenue. It's certainly worth a stop. Come along to the Historical Society meetings as well. I went along to the last one and I found them to be a very group of friendly people. And the refreshments were nice as well.
Yes, there's always refreshments served.
Thank you again, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So how can you help us in making the program? Two ways. We need a small group of volunteers who are prepared to come along and actually help make the program, work the cameras and the other equipment at the studios. You don't have to worry if you don't know anything about it. I don't either. We can all learn together, we can all have some good fun doing it, and we'll all have another skill set to add to our list of knowledge. The second way is you can tell me what's going on in Milwaukie. Do you have an issue in your neighbourhood that you would like to promote? Do you have something going on in your neighbourhood that you disagree with? The Monroe Bright Greenway might be one of those issues. Are you adamantly against having a road set aside mainly for the use of bicyclists and pedestrians? Or do you support the idea? We can make a program about it. We can make a program about anything in Milwaukie that you like. If you'd like to be a part of the making of the program, or you have suggestions for items that we can make programs about, please contact me, Dave Hedges, dhedges@wfmcstudios.org, and we'll see where we go with the ideas. And the volunteers, we need you now. Thank you very much.